Money for sexual favors. Is it okay to give your spouse money or luxury items for sexual acts that they might not want to do? Hi friends, glad to be back today. And today we're addressing the concept of money for sex. Where do we draw the line when it comes to a long-term relationship or a marriage? I know that some of you instantly see this as a problem. This is a problem, it's a slippery slope. Where does it end? If you're giving your spouse money or luxury items or vacation, what's sacred about the marriage? This is supposed to be a marriage that two people bonded together, come together in this holy matrimony where we're supposed to come together and help each other and sacrifice for one another. But how much sacrifice is too much? And is it okay for one person to sacrifice while the other person gets pleasure, or vice versa? Some of you may say that this might change the bond. This might reflect negatively on the relationship, and that's possible, but think about it. If you're somebody that wants something and you're not getting it and your spouse doesn't want to give it to you, what do? Do you just sit there and kind of wait and go, well, I'd really like to get this, and I guess it might be the rest of my life that I wish for this? Or you could possibly say, well, if I can't get it here, then maybe I can go find it somewhere else. But would it be better to get it from your spouse if there's a way that your spouse would be okay with giving it? But flip-flop. If you're somebody that doesn't want to do a sexual act and somebody's asking you to do it and you don't want to do it, and that feels that you're sacrificing yourself, is that okay to sacrifice yourself in the marriage? Because I think two people should be at 100% together as far as both people equal, not one person powered over the other. You don't have to do something for the other person. So I really think that a marriage is about two people equally coming together in the same power dynamic, not one person over the other or more powerful, both equal. So if both people are equal, why do people have to sacrifice with something that they don't want to sacrifice for? One specific question you might ask in this situation is, did that spouse ever do those sexual acts before? So in the beginning of the relationship, was that on the table and was it okay? But then things changed over time and eventually that was not allowed. Or was that never allowed and that was never on the table? Because that's an interesting concept in and of its own, right? Because if it was there at one time and then not there, I could see the desire to have it. If it was never there, but you never really asked for it, it could be something that has changed over time or something that you weren't really honest about asking for because you wanted it, but you didn't want to bring it up and you thought eventually you'll get it, but you didn't. So that's also an interesting point too. And we have to think about those points when it comes to getting someone to do something that they might not want to do. Is it something they've done before or is this something new? So going back to the concept of sacrifice. So if somebody wants something and they've been asking their spouse over and over again and the spouse says, no, 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 no. Do they just sit there and wait? Do they step out of the marriage? Do they find someone that will give it to them for free, right? A side piece or whatever that looks like. Or do they pay someone, a professional, to do what they want to do outside of the marriage? And I think in that situation, many of you might say, well, I don't agree with that at all. I don't agree with that at all. I don't agree with going outside of the marriage for sexual acts. So how do we bring it back in the marriage? And now it's interesting too, if you think about it lately, in the last few years, probably in the last 10 years, that word agreement has come up quite a bit when it comes to marriage. A lot of people are creating these agreements. We hear, oh, John and Mary, they have an agreement. And so these agreements are very interesting. So what is that agreement? And I think the agreement is based on the fact that somebody wants something and somebody's willing to give it based on a specific agreement that they both agree to, right? Even if it's something like bringing someone else into the marriage, that sort of thing, it's an agreed upon situation by both people in the marriage. An interesting question too is that if someone doesn't do X, Y, Z, is it okay to tell the other person that they can never have it? And that's a good question too, because I know that many people have reached out to me recently saying that the sex has started to dry up, things like that, and they're wanting to do this, but their spouse is not willing to, and they're feeling dejected, they're feeling really stressed, they're feeling sad. So what does somebody do in that situation too, especially when they're wanting to do this with their spouse, they're wanting to share this intimacy with their spouse? Is there a way to bridge that gap? I know that this subject matter is polarizing, and I know that many of you might be saying, that's an interesting concept, and some of you might say, this is appalling, this is everything that marriage isn't supposed to be. But let's take it a step further, because I think that there's another question that I have. So if the person that doesn't want to do the sexual act takes money in exchange for doing that, but they didn't really come up with that suggestion or agreement, how does that make them feel? And I think that makes somebody feel very small and marginalized. On the flip-flop, if the person that doesn't want to necessarily do the sexual act just for the sexual act makes an agreement with their spouse that they come up with, that they specifically come up with that'll work for them, perhaps that gives them power in the situation. If you give me what I want, I'll give you what you want. And I think that that's an interesting concept in and of its own, right? If both people get what they want, is that good or bad? So the question that I want to leave you with today, something to think about, something to spark some interest, some thoughts on this, because many of you might have been married for a long time and this might be something that you've been thinking about or something that you hadn't thought about. I'm not saying this is good, bad, or indifferent, but do you consider this something that could help a marriage, that could actually lead to a healthier marriage, more engaging marriage? Or do you think that this actually leads to a toxic exchange into a possible unhealthy toxic marriage? I hope that this video has piqued your thought process and really made you start thinking about the concept of marriage and sacrifice and that sort of thing. There's not one right answer to this. If you like this video, give us a like, give us a thumbs up on that. If you like this type of content, subscribe to the channel so you know when we actually have our videos go up live each week. And in the comment section, let me know, what do you think? Do you think that this leads to a healthier situation or do you not? I'm interested in your perspective. Don't forget to live your true life.